Well, it's such a privilege to get to work in this capacity. It's something that I've dreamed of doing for as long as I can remember. I started at NASA, though, actually as a flight surgeon, a physician that takes care of the crew and their families. I started that back in 2007, and I did that job for a couple of years, supporting the crews that were, mainly supporting the crews that were training out in Star City in Russia, preparing for their space station missions. And so over the course of the 2 years that I worked as a flight surgeon, about 6 months or a quarter of that time was spent living and working in Russia, in Star City, and then supporting various other survival training and other activities around their country. But I applied, they announced a selection in 2008, and so I applied to the astronaut office and had the great fortune of being selected in the 2009 class, the 20th astronaut group. And so I've been in the office now since 2009, almost 14 years. And when you first enter the office, you enter as an astronaut candidate. You spend about 18 months to 2 years doing all of the kind of the basic training that's required in order to be prepared to fly a mission. And so I did that, and then was assigned to a mission in 2013, flew in 2015, on Expedition 44 and 45, 141 days on the International Space Station, launching on a Soyuz rocket out of Kazakhstan to the International Space Station, joining Expedition 44 and serving as a kind of the middle part of Scott Kelly's 1-year mission, and then returning in December of 2015. And actually just got back from a mission about 3 months ago. I had the privilege of serving as commander for Crew 4, launching on a SpaceX Crew Dragon from Kennedy Space Center back in April, on April 27th, and then spending 170 days on the space station with Expedition 67 and 68. We returned October 14th after 170 days, and what an extraordinary experience to get to do, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get to do that a second time. But very, very grateful for that experience, for a successful mission, and happy to be home back with my friends and family. There is, and but what a privilege to get to be a part of both of those systems. I really treasure the experience of getting to be a part of the training and the history and the culture of spaceflight. Flying with our Russian partners, getting to live and work in Star City, putting on a Sokol suit and serving in a Soyuz spacecraft. Really, that's the 3rd generation Russian spacecraft, and so getting to be a part of that was a lot of fun. But now, having had the opportunity to work with SpaceX prior to this flight, I served as the backup for the Demo 2 mission, the very first flight, as well as the Crew 1 mission. I served as our assistant to our chief astronaut for commercial crew activities, specifically SpaceX, and so got to spend a lot of time in the test and development and verification for this Crew Dragon system. And then ultimately to get to fly on it, to serve as the commander for our mission, and to ride in a vehicle that is really now the cutting edge of technology, of kind of human spaceflight technology, in a very different kind of environment and setting. Very clean lines. Our main interface, is as a touch screen, wearing very sleek suits. The physics of getting into space remain the same. We have to get up to 17,500 miles per hour in order to get into orbit. But to do that in a new vehicle, really leveraging our commercial sector, leveraging our commercial partners, and their ability to use the most recent technologies. It was really a cool experience. This is something that I've dreamed of doing for as long as I can remember, and incredibly grateful to have realized that dream. I think the most important thing, you listed a lot of the experiences in the path. It was a very convoluted one for me to get to this point. But I think the most important of the common thread to all of that are the incredible people that helped me achieve this dream. This is, I think, for all of us that get to fly to low Earth orbit, and even get to work in the astronaut office. It is not a singular achievement. It is not an individual achievement. It's really a team achievement. And so I've gotten to be a part of amazing teams, amazing organizations, and I've been invested in by coaches and teachers, friends, colleagues, my family along the way to really help me get to this goal. And so it's been a privilege to get to do this work, to be a part of the team that conducts this work, that builds these vehicles, that tests them, that flies the International Space Station, that helps us to be successful in our missions, and grateful to share that experience with all of those folks. In a nutshell, I guess a big nutshell. I was inspired by science fiction, by movies and books, and it wasn't until when I was in second grade and our teacher wheeling a television into our classroom for us to all get to watch, to experience the launch of the very first space shuttle in 1981. And that is when this dream gelled in my mind, that what I enjoyed about science fiction, that there was actually an opportunity to do that, to live and work in space. And so I pursued that wholeheartedly. Of course, no internet back in those days. And so I went to books, reading biographies of our early astronauts, and they all seemed to be test pilots. That's really where we drew our very first astronauts, is from the test pilot domain. So I figured that's what I needed to do. My father was in the Air Force. We had good friends who were pilots. The friends of my friends' dads were pilots, and so I decided that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to fly in the Air Force, with then maybe the potential of pursuing that dream of becoming an astronaut later on. And so I worked hard in high school. I got into the U.S. Air Force Academy, and it's there where that I had that opportunity of being on the Air Force Academy's parachute team, the Wings of Blue. That was really born out of and seeking to be a part of a small team doing amazing things. And I had experienced that in high school wrestling, and I was looking for that in my academy experience, and so really found that the opportunity to challenge myself, to be a part of a team that was doing something larger than ourselves, and doing something that was exciting. Not only doing demonstrations for the Air Force, not only participating in intercollegiate and national competitions, but also getting to train fellow cadets and train officers to do their very first parachute jumps. That was a very extraordinarily gratifying experience. And then after graduating from the Air Force Academy, I pursued my passion. I found a passion in biology and physiology, specifically how the human body adapts to the weightless environment. And so I pursued a graduate degree in cardiovascular physiology, and had the opportunity to actually do my master's research in the Space Physiology Laboratory at NASA Ames Research Center. And that was a dream come true. I went on and ultimately separated from the Air Force and pursued medicine. I trained in emergency medicine and then aerospace medicine, and then had the great fortune to secure a job here at NASA at Johnson Space Center as a flight surgeon, and then went on to apply and be selected into the astronaut office. So definitely not a direct route. There were obstacles and challenges along the way, and grateful for my family, for friends, for my faith, for all those people that invested me along the way to help realize this dream. Yeah, the fundamental similarity is that we're in free fall in both of those experiences. Of course, in space, we're falling around the Earth. We're surrounded by a vehicle that's also falling around the Earth. So within that vehicle, there's no relative difference in velocity or speed. And so we feel like we're floating within that vehicle. But in all truth, we are in free fall around the Earth. Of course, on the Earth, we're in free fall once we jump out of the plane. But you definitely feel like you're falling. You feel the wind as you're falling through the atmosphere. And you can see the ground, the earth getting bigger. And so there's definitely a sense of falling. And so you rely on your skills to deploy your parachute and deal with any issues that arise. But it is a free fall experience. It just definitely feels like you're falling. During a spacewalk, there are folks who have talked about in their memoirs or written about how they felt like they were falling, and were almost terrified to let go of the space station. I can say that for myself, I didn't feel like I was falling towards the Earth. I did get a sense of how fast we were going as I would look back at the Earth and how fast we were going over the Earth's surface. And I definitely was not comfortable just letting go of the space station. I always definitely felt like I needed to make sure that I was attached to the space station. And we have multiple tethers and ways of doing that. But it was not a feeling of wanting to just release and fly back against my tethers. I definitely wanted to feel secure. I know that for myself, for our office, that we are incredibly excited about this new mission and this path to the moon. I think in my space station work, I felt like a bridge builder, that each of us that served on the space station, we were doing the science and the operational research that was required to push further into the solar system, to extend our presence, and also still to make life better back on Earth. And so we have realized that that work in this new mission, the Artemis program, to return to the moon's surface. And so I think that we are all incredibly excited about that. Excited that one of our colleagues, one of our friends, is going to have that opportunity to live and work on the lunar surface. And then as that program continues, I think that there may be opportunities for us. There might be an opportunity for me, but for right now, I'm excited in diving into the work to support this program's goals, our agency goals, and the goals of our international partnership. What an amazing way to accept this challenge, take on this challenge, to aim for the moon, but to do that as an international community, and to bring the very best of our experiences and our expertises towards that goal, achieving that goal, and then sometime in the future, setting our sights on Mars. Being an astronaut is one of those interesting jobs where we are hired to fly in space. That is our job, but we do that for a very small part of our career, and most of the time is spent here on the Earth, training for those flights, but also supporting the mission, supporting our colleagues, our friends, as they're preparing for their missions, as they're conducting their missions. We have astronauts sitting in mission control. As Capcoms, we had astronauts this morning that were sitting in the EVA back room, serving as advisors as our good friends Koichi and Nicole went out to do their spacewalk today. And so we serve in those capacities, helping to train up the next generation of astronauts, doing outreach, having opportunities like this to speak with people who act as force multipliers for our mission of bringing people into the absolutely amazing things that we are accomplishing in low Earth orbit, and the amazing things that we're going to accomplish on the moon. And so for me personally, right now, I'm still in my post-flight. We get some time after our missions to do the medical tests, the data collection, the reconditioning that's required after a long duration flight like that. We do debriefs with all of the teams that help to support our mission and our training. And then we get a little bit of time afterwards to do outreach, to do virtual engagements like this, or to visit facilities, organizations, and to share our experiences and to spread the word about the exciting things that we're doing for our country and for our international partnership, to spread those experiences with folks around the world. Once I'm done with that post-flight period, I'm excited to pick up a job again, to dive into to support my friends and colleagues as they are embarking on their own missions. I've had the opportunity to have 2 extraordinary experiences in low Earth orbit, and so it's really my goal to invest in the office, invest in our agency, to ensure that that my friends and colleagues have those same extraordinary experiences. I would say that it takes time to adjust to being in low Earth orbit, to being in that weightless condition. It's certainly self-correcting. If you push off too quickly, you run into something, you learn very quickly like how much force is required. But there is a physiological adjustment. Your body has to adapt to that environment, and so some crew members initially upon arriving at the space station will feel motion sick, or kind of the space motion sickness or space adaptation syndrome for a few days. And I suffered from that during my first mission. I felt way better the second time around. But truly getting used to being on the space station and doing the work, honestly, it takes, I think, about 4 to 6 weeks. And I think most folks would agree, 4 to 6 weeks to really feel like you're adapted to that environment and effective and efficient in that environment. Basic life skills, sure, within a couple of days, I think you can survive on the space station, but really to be effective, it takes a little bit of an adaptation time. And it's the same for coming home. Our bodies have adapted then to that weightless environment, and it takes time for us to get used to being in gravity again. We're certainly strong enough. Most of us come back stronger than we were when we launched, because we're working out 2 hours a day. But it takes time for our brains to adjust to how much force, how much muscle recruitment is required to perform certain activities. So we're a little clumsy. We've got neurovestibular issues. We're a little dizzy because, again, we're getting used to that vector, that gravity acceleration, and our brains have to adjust to that. So I would say that for me, it took a couple of weeks, maybe a week and a half, for the dizziness, the neurovestibular system to readapt. And it takes, for me, about 30 to 45 days for your body to get used to gravity again. There's a lot of muscle soreness, low back pain. Your body is adjusting to carrying itself around in this gravity environment. As for dropping something, I've heard those stories. I don't personally know anybody that has really experienced that. I kind of, and not to pawn it off on past astronauts, but I kind of feel like that is something maybe a shuttle astronaut might have done. They're up there for a shorter period of time, and you might just kind of let things float because you're in a much smaller environment. On the space station, I cannot remember a single time where I intentionally let something float that I needed to keep track of, because within a minute, and I share that with all my crew members when I get up there, and we all marvel at how quickly and how easy it is to lose something. And so if you just let something float next to you, if your attention is diverted for even a few seconds, it is incredible how quickly that thing will float away. So for me, it was anything that I had in my hands was always very intentionally Velcroing it down, tucking it in under a bungee. And so when I got home, I never had this inclination of just letting something go to float in front of me. It was always like an intentional, like, I'm going to put this somewhere. So I've heard that story before, and I know that that's certainly happened to folks, but I've never experienced that myself. So I'm grateful that I have the background, the emergency medicine background and space medicine background that I have, and to be a resource for my crewmates. But even more grateful that we did not have to address any emergency situations. Of course, there are some common things that happen, maybe a muscle strain or something else going on, and I was very happy to serve as a resource for those things, but grateful that we didn't have to deal with any emergencies.